happened in that? We're on YouTube, by the way.
Out of nowhere, the government actually decided that they're going to do massive testing in the Jewish area because the numbers are seriously higher there. But they call the area the Jewish area. This literally, if you literally go under the bridge to the other side, where it's like the Moroccan area, if they would call that the Moroccan area, they would have Syria right, the Jewish area.
Yeah, if you're very careful, you criticize. I saw murder just Levi this week. Unbelievable. Just Levi writes, we don't wear tefillin all day. Why don't we wear tefillin all day? Because we're unable to focus the whole time our minds on the tefillin. But the Gaon did. The Gaon did. So what does it say now, tefillin? How great is Hashem? What does it say in Hashem's tefillin? How great are we? It says Kedushas Levi that Kedush Baruch Hu has no problem concentrating all day. So he wears tefillin all the time. So when a person says something negative about Klal Yisrael, you're saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that the tefillin that you're thinking about are apostle. How would a person ever speak such a thing? Because he's concentrating all the time about what's written in the tefillin. It's not like us to space out all the time. Anyway, okay. The main nakuda here, it's not easy. Come on, it's cheshbonos, and to get all the different. If we concentrate, get it clear, get a lot of reciprocal. There's a lot of interesting nakudas. Very, very briefly. If you shecht a Korban Pesach on Erev Pesach and you think to yourself, you're shechting a shlomim, what have you done? Pasal. Korban Pesach is kosher. The rest of the year, what's the din? If you shechted the shem Korban Pesach, let's say, for example, I designate this sheep as a Korban Pesach today. I'm allowed to, but you're allowed to shecht. You're allowed to designate. Not nowadays. In time later, you don't have to wait the day before Pesach. Designate 2 months before. So you designated the shem Korban Pesach, and then you can't bother waiting so long. You shecht it. So if you shechted the shem Pesach, what's the din? Apostle, that's very good. You shechted the shem shlomim, it is kosher. Say here it's like double jeopardy or something, but you get it twice wrong. You shechted on the wrong day, and you shechted for the wrong reason. You get it right, and there's a certain logic to it. Because when you shechted the shem Korban Pesach, but it's not Pesach time. So but when you shechted the shem shlomim, you can argue, I'm not trying to bring a Pesach, so it's okay. What the Gemara now discusses, what would it then be if you shechted on the wrong day for the wrong owners? That means a group of people designated, and they decided to shech the sheep for Korban Pesach, and the week before Pesach, you shechted for the wrong group. That's the shayla of the Gemara. So let's see the Gemara inside. We're up to Samach Amud Beis, 6 lines from the bottom. After this introduction, hopefully the rest of the Gemara should go straight. Pesach sheshachtu b'shaymus hashana. Pesach which is shechted on any other day of the year. B'shinui ba'alim, for the wrong owners. Now, the Gemara selects. Do you say shinui ba'alim? Because shinui kodesh nami, it's like getting the wrong korban. And what's the din if you get to the wrong korban? Or machshir is kosher. Or maybe not. I spoke in front of Rava. Just like if you say the wrong one there, Pesach, that means you said it's shlomim, it's possible. And so too, if you say the wrong owners in the Pesach, it's also possible. It means he says it's almost very bad-batish almost, if you don't mind me saying, but actually it's very like without thinking too far into it. Erev Pesach, we said it for the wrong owners, possible. Erev Pesach, we said it for Shlomim, possible. The rest of the year, if you do it L'Shem Shlomim, if you don't do it for Shem, then it would be kosher. So the same thing if you do it for the wrong owners, it's also kosher. I mean, it's the same logic. Just like you get it wrong on Erev Pesach, it's no good, but the rest of the year it's good. So too, if you get it for the wrong owners, on Erev Pesach it's no good, the rest of the year it is. So Omali, Rava replied, look, you can't compare. In Amos with Shinu Kodesh, the Gemara is now going to find 4 differences. So they're going to game, spot the difference, right? It's a game. So here we're going to find 4 differences between Shinu Kodesh and Shinu Baalim. What does Shinu Kodesh mean? Very good, wrong column, like Shlomi. Shinu Baalim, the wrong owners. 4 differences between Shinu Kodesh and Shinu Baalim. So look, bottom line again. Im Amos with Shinu Kodesh came Psula Begufot. The psul is intrinsic to the korban because you're getting it to the wrong korban. You said it's a shlomim. I'm really it's a korban Pesach, so the psul is in the essence of the korban. The yeshnei ba'ba avodas. The psul of shinui kodesh exists in any one of the 4. For example, if you shecht it for shlomim, you catch the blood for shlomim. You do halacha, means walk in the blood for shlomim, or you do zvika for shlomim. It's no good. Masha'enkim, we're going to see that shinui ba'alim is only b'shas shchita. The only time, or Zvika, depending which korban it is. That means most korbanos it is by Zvika, and korban Pesach it's by Shechita. This is where it gets slightly more complicated to remember. Most korbanos, let's say for example, you ask me to bring a chatos for you, right? So I go to Tony and I say to him, look, here's my chatos, will you shecht it for me? And he does the Zvika not for me, but for Chaim. So that's no good. But they're walking with the blood, we don't care what he's thinking. So Shinui Kodesh is by all four. Shinui Baalim is only by one. By Korban Pesach, which one is it by? Only by the Shechita. By all other Korbanos, it's only by the Zvika. Would you remember that?
Wake me up in the night now.
By Baalim.
Shinui Baalim, what did I say?
No, I'm saying that.
Shinui
By Pesach,
Baalim,
it's only about the Shechita, by Baalim.
that's right. And by Shinui Baalim, by all the Korbanos, it's only by Zvika. Anyone want to tell me why that is? Why would that be that Shinui Baalim by Korban Pesach is only by the Shechita, and Shinui Baalim by all of the Korbanos is possible only by the Zvika?
I mean, Zvika is the last one, no?
Zvika is the last one. What? So I want to say something, and this is very important, and we'll come to it a few times. Korban Pesach is different from all the Korbanos. Already learned to bring it after the Talmud. The essence of Korban Pesach is that it should be eaten. We'll see, for example, a normal korban, if you can't eat it, let's say, for example, all the meat became tummy. It's still a fine korban. You could still carry on Zvika, you could do burning on fat. Korban Pesach, you can't. Korban Pesach is meant for eating. And that's why, for example, if you shecht a korban not for people that can eat it, normal korbanos, we don't care. If you shecht a toida with the intention to give it to 10 old people and none of them can eat, the korban's kosher. Korban Pesach, if you shecht it for 10 old people and none of them can eat, it's possible. So therefore, by Korban Pesach, when you do the shechita, which makes it possible to be eaten, shechita makes something possible to eat. For the wrong owners, then you've spilt it. All of the korbanos, the main thing is the kapor. The kapor is always done by zvika. Zvika is the mechapa. Okay, I want to get again. We're trying to spot the difference between Shinui Kodesh and Shinui Baalim.
If you do for the wrong people,
That's right. And that's why by Shinui Baalim is a psul and zvika by most korbanos, but by Korban Pesach it's in by shechita. Again, by Shinui Baalim is a psul by zvika, by most korbanos by Pesach it's only by shechita. Again, we had a question.
We didn't explain why the zvika.
We'll explain. Okay, again, a person who comes the whole year round. That's not the kapor. What's the halacha? What? You're right by other cases, but here we're looking by Shinui Baalim. Again, the halacha is Shinui Kodesh is possible on their Pesach, and Shinui Baalim is possible on their Pesach. Shinui Kodesh is the wrong korban, Shinui Baalim is the wrong owners. Everybody agrees Shinui Kodesh during the rest of the year. What's the din? What? Kosher. Very good. Shinui Kodesh by the rest of the year is kosher. Shinui Baalim, the Papa said that the logic follows it should be the same. Says Rabbi, no, it's not, because there's a difference in Shinui Kodesh and Shinui Baalim. There are 4 differences. Difference number 1 is Shinui Kodesh is a psul in the whole korban. I said it's a shlamim, and really it's a Pesach. You've gone on and ruined the whole thing. Shinui Baalim is only a minor difference, because I'm only saying instead of A, it says for B. The korban is what it is. The difference number 2 is b'yeshno ba'ba avodas. Shinui Kodesh is a psul in all 4 avodas. So if you're walking with the blood, thinking it's a chatos it's an oilam, it's no good. It's only a psul either by shechita by Korban Pesach or by zvika by all the korbanos. V'yeshno lachamisa. It means like this. Yaakov died, and he left the Yerushkas. And he promised to bring a korban before he died. Does his son have to bring the korban? I'll give it to you a bit. Imagine a man's dying in his deathbed. I'm going to give $100. No. And then he drops dead. No. So if he leaves a Yerusha that covers the $100, then yes, he does. That means if he leaves enough money. Not chatos, oilo. You're right, by chatos, you're right. Chatos, you never bring after somebody dies. More says about doesn't time. What? But oilo. So a man is lying on his deathbed, I'm going to give $100 and he dies. If he leaves enough money, the children have to give. Now, what happens if they bring $100 and they say by every one of them it should be a shlomim? What happens? Let's say he promises $100, he leaves enough money for $100, and then what happens is the kohen goes and does it to 100 shlomims. You have to start the whole thing from scratch, another 100. Because it's Shinui Kodesh.
What happens if he's not left enough money?
I'm not sure. No, the kohen doesn't have to pay. It's a special din. A kohen never pays if he passes a korban. Does anybody know why, by the way?
Probably
It's a
won't let
special
them.
takon. No, forget. If he doesn't have to pay,
wouldn't want to do that either then.
no.
If he did have to pay, then he would.
There would never be
Because he
any.
had to pay, he wouldn't want to pass on.
We don't want him to pass on.
That's what I'm saying. That's why he doesn't have to pay.
No, he doesn't have to pay. Why should the Kohen not have to pay? Let's make him pay, then he makes sure to do it carefully. The answer is the Gemara in Gittin says that if he'll all do is he'll make a mistake, he'll be so stressed about the money, he won't tell anyone, and then people won't know that as a common apostle. Okay, we went off the point. Again, a man died. What? A man dies, he promises 100 oilers. And the Kohen goes, gives 100 shlomim, we start again. What happens if the Kohen brings up the 100 dollars, but instead of thinking it's for Yaakov or for Reuven, whatever, the son of Yaakov, he thinks it's for somebody else, Esav, I don't know, Dino, some other completely different relative. There's no din shinui ba'alim lachamisa. Why is no din shinui ba'alim lachamisa? Because anyway, there's no longer the real owners. So they're really on the ba'alim, so there's no din shinui ba'alim, but shinui kodesh there. So we're trying to find difference in shinui kodesh and shinui ba'alim. So that's the third difference. V'yeshne b'tzibur k'beyochid. If it's carbon sibur, you do shinui kodesh. What's the carbon sibur? It's olas atomid, shamid sibur on shvus. If you do shinui kodesh, it's possible. Shinui ba'alim, it's not possible. If you don't, let's just see. If you see the Rashi, it's right towards almost halfway down the page, even later. This Rashi will come up much later in the Gemara, so it's worthwhile to see it. Rashi says, let's say being a common tomid, right? The Kohen goes, Sean brings up a common tomid for whole Klal Yisrael, and instead of thinking it's for Klal Yisrael, how can you do Shinui Ba'alim? Give me a good example of Shinui Ba'alim. What would you do? Goyim, very good. He's doing it for the Chinese, or he does it for one need. He does it for one need, just for one person. Says Rashi. Says Rashi, what about if he does it for the goy? Says Rashi, Shinu Ba'alim is only a psul if the other person would theoretically have the ability to bring that korban. So if he does it for the Chinese, they can't be a korban tomid. So therefore, there's no Shinu Ba'alim. Oh, what's the other one? Oh, Rashi doesn't say the other one. Where's Rashi doesn't say about Yochid? Where's Rashi say? We did it today. So where is it? It's I think that has it. So maybe so I can't remember. That's by Yochid also not, because it's not the wrong Ba'alim. He's just limited the Ba'alim. So again, there are four different. Let's go through again and more again. It's on top of some Machala from Dalef. V'yesh le'achamisa, Shinu kodesh works after Misa. V'yesh le'besivu k'beyochid. Tuma b'shinu ba'alim. T'ein psuli b'guf. It's not psuli in their guf. V'einu ba'avodas. V'einu le'achamisa. V'einu b'sivu k'beyochid. So there are four differences. And since there are four differences, so we see from these four differences that Shinui psul haguf, Shinui kodesh is a much greater problem, and therefore Shinui kodesh will work the rest of the year. The Shinui Ba'alim will not work the rest of the year. That means because Shinui Kodesh is much more dramatic, so therefore if I bring a korban the rest of the year, Shinui Kodesh, so it's therefore it will be kosher. The Shinui Ba'alim, because it's not that much of a difference, so then the rest of the year will be possible. Do you realize over here we're making the Shinui Kodesh because it's worse and it makes much more of a difference, so therefore it makes it mutter the rest of the year. Can you agree with that logic? You hear the logic? Because Shinui Kodesh is a whole different column. If I bring Korban Pesach today, and I say it's a Shalomim, because I've taken it away from Pesach to Shalomim, therefore it's kosher. But if I just change it from Reuven to Shimon, that doesn't have the ability. That's what was argued. Now the Gemara tells us that of the four differences, two of them aren't so good. Why not? But I've got the Tati Lav Dafka, two of them are not definite. Tati Mir Dafka, two are good. Why? Why do you consider it that it's not a psul b'gufa? Why shouldn't it buy not psul b'gufa? Because you've got nothing wrong. You just change it from Reuven to Shimon. Shinui kodesh nami psul b'machshava ba'almahi. The Gemara declares, the Gemara considers the fact that even Shinui kodesh is not psul b'gufa. Why is it not a psul b'gufa? Because it's just a thought. It's not a psul in the actual korban. You're just thinking from Oila to Shlomim. Or Pesach.
If you cut it in one piece, then it's
That's right. Oh. V'su hodom ashnu balim in lachamisa. V'dechas v'edavami doma yeshnu balim lachamisa. He holds there's yeshnu balim lachamisa. Mike lemima. So what says Tatimir Stafkeninu, but two of them are good. Elo ma'ova Pesach sheshoftu shaymo yisashon v'shnu balim. Naise k'misha einlo balim bizmano yopasul. So Vova Paskins it is possible. Remember that If you shech the korban Pesach today, how can you make it kosher? What happens if you say it's for the wrong owners? Kosher. And who says it was kosher? Well, Papa was one who said it's kosher. Papa doesn't agree. We pass that on. The Mishnah continues with these halachas. I want to move on already. You shech the korban Pesach for people that are not going to eat it. Or people that were not counted, registered by it. For people who have done bismillah, and people who are tummy. Possible. Now here it tells us that before we learned when you do it shalom lishmo, it's possible even if you do both correct thought and incorrect thought. Here we're more maker that if you do a combination of correct and incorrect, it is kosher. For example, so if you combine any of these four with the corresponding one, which is kosher, that means is somebody that can't eat. Who's somebody who can't eat? No, that's Tommy. Either old man or chayla. Right? So again, somebody who can't eat. Nervous is not registered. And Orel or Tommy, those are four groups. All of them make it possible. Right. Says the Mishnah, Shochte kudum chatzois possible. Shochte before chatzois possible, Shushanema ben Abai. So it's an afternoon. Shochte kudum letomit kosher. But the evidence is kosher. You have to have something to stir the blood for a long time till you finish the korban tamid, and then you sprinkle the blood of the korban Pesach. But if you sprinkle it even before the korban tamid is kosher. So again, if you shecht it before chatzos, it is possible even b'di'evet. If you shecht it after chatzos, before the korban tamid, it is kosher b'di'evet. But you should do the zrika after the korban tamid. But if you did the zrika before the korban tamid, it's also kosher. And more will eventually bring to us for all of this. It says, "What? For a person who's not well or zaken, you had one group designated, and you shechted for a different group. The Tanah Abona b'michsas, the pasuk in this parsha, the michsas by the counting. Only for those who were counted on it. You might have thought, okay, if you counted for the people not designated, then okay, you've done something wrong, but it's still kosher b'di'evet. The Torah says it twice. The apostle repeats it to be ma'akev. A principle which the Gemara says in Zvachim dozens of times, that hilchas kodshim, if the Torah says an halacha once, it means lechatchila, that's what you should do. If the Torah says an halacha twice, it's telling you that even b'di'evet it's no good if you haven't done it. This is a very important principle in kodshim. It's only in kodshim. Kosav shana lav la'akev. Whenever you have kodshim, something which is repeated, it's ma'akev. If it's only said it once, for example, we say every day, we should say every day. Right? If you don't do the shiraim, it's not ma'akev. Or if you only do one zvika, it's not ma'akev. And the Gemara asks, why is it not ma'akev? The Torah says it. And when the Gemara goes through, and again and again and again, the Gemara just says, because we only have one pasuk, not two psukim, and since it only has one pasuk, not two psukim, it's not ma'akev. But Rabbi Yomi, now Rabbi, Rashi doesn't really explain what Rabbi is saying. So I'm going to stick with Tosfos. There are those who say that Rashi is chaylik though. Rabbi Yomi loshin sulsihu. The word techosu comes from the Aramaic word, and it doesn't mean counting. It means shechting. Shecht for me this sheep. So if you see, look at Tosfos, it's the third Tosfos. Rabbi Yomi loshin sulsihu. The Rabbi lo poligatanekah. Right, the Tosfos says that Rabbi changes the word to chosu, which we had translated before as counting, and we use the word to tell us that the pasuk is telling it to us twice in order to tell us it's ma'akev. Rabbi says the word to chosu doesn't mean counting. What does the word to chosu mean? Shech. Nevertheless, Rabbi's not chiluk on. Rabbi's not chiluk. I think there's Rabbi's not chiluk on the. He's not chiluk. So they all ask, what do you mean he's not chiluk? Once you don't have a double word, so then it is. So they say because he translates the word to chosu, since the Torah could have said tishchatu, and says the word to chosu, the Torah is teaching us both. That to chosu means shechted, and also means counting. And therefore, all Rabbi is doing is adding what we said earlier, that when you shechted shloi la'oichlav, it is possible. That if you do zvika shloi la'oichlav, what would it then be? Kosher, why? Because techoisu, but it's the word techoisu, shechtit, of the counting. Ashchen shlolim nuyov, that's the counting that people registered. Shloilo ichla minalam. Omar kva ishtafi ochloi techoisu iskash ichla minun. Whenever the Torah tells us two halachas next to each other, we make a hekesh, we compare the halachas. And since the Torah here mentions those registered, which is in the word techoisu, and those those who are counting, those who are eating, sorry. Therefore, the Torah tells us the two halachas are the same, and therefore it is you have to shecht it both for the people who are going to eat it, and both the people who will count it. Right. Says the Gemara Samach Aleph on Beis Tafel. We know we said like this: if you shecht it for people who are going to eat it, fine. If you shecht it for people who are not going to eat it, or not going to, or avelim or tmeim, what's the din? Possible. If you do zvika for the wrong people, what's the din? Kosher. Zvika back on Pesach for the wrong people, not other psulim like Shleli Shmoy and things like that is possible. But zvika Shleila Oichla, that's kosher. That everybody agrees. There's two halachas. Halacha number one, shchita, no good if you do it for the wrong people. Zvika is good. The question now, which one spends a lot of time discussing, more than the rest of today's stuff, is what happens if you shecht it with intention to do for the right people, but that the zvika should be done for the wrong people. I don't know why the Kohen would do such a thing. But sometimes he shecht it with the intention that I'm going to let the people who should eat it, but when I will do zvika, not when he's doing the zvika, but he shecht it with the intention that when he will do the zvika, then he will do the zvika for the wrong people.
That was more that code.
No.
Who had it also, he thinks about
Similar. Yeah, that's right. Yes. So again, exactly, that's the shayla of the Gemara which one's going to discuss.
How can you have in mind that shechita is for the right people, but at the same time thinking that the zvika is going to be...
That means he thinks it's like this. I'm going to shecht it now. That's the group A and group A. Group A has to be the column. When to shecht the group A should be able to eat it. With my intention is, but when it comes to the zvika, either that's more difficult or I'm over clever to the extent that I think to myself, maybe I'll get other people to be able to eat at the same time. So that's the shayla of the Gemara. And now the Gemara uses one example, and Rashi says it means any of them. For example, shochter le mulin, amanoshis kapu boyavidim bezvika, chista ba posav abama kosher. Rashi, if you look at Rashi, Rashi says, top Rashi, shochter le achile le mulin minuyin, aviskapu beviskose avelim. Or Rashi says it doesn't matter which one we're talking about. It's any of these cases. Okay, so Chisda says it's possible, Rabbi says it's kosher. Rav Chisda Omar possible yesh b'Hashem sareinim bezvika. And everybody points out it means that there is shchita sareinim bezvika when you did the shchita, because everybody agrees that by the zvika itself there's no such thing, right? That means if you shecht it, the zvika itself, of course, by itself is not a problem. But we mean over here, you shecht it, amanos that the zvika should be no good.
In between stage.
No, that means the case.
If you shecht it, it's okay. While during the two middle stages, then he's thinking, I'm going to do zvika for...
No, that's the hard issue. It says at the bottom of some of nobody argues in this case. Say like this. It is true the losh of the Gemara is not as nice as that. That's what the Gemara means. Yes, that when you do the shechita to do the avelim for the zvika, it's possible. How do I know this? The Tanya. What Rabbi does is he brings a brisa, which is a difficult brisa to understand. He explains the brisa, and by the time you finish explaining the brisa, it's a proof to Rabbi's shitta. The brisa is like this: that means, let's say you've got a group of people, a nice group, decide to bring the Korban Pesach, and they're all perfect. They've all done the smira, they're all toy, and they're all registered, and they can all eat. And then what happens is the person shechts it for them. And at the same time, he adds a couple of other people. For example, he adds an oval, he adds a tomei. Besides for the group, which is good, he adds. So what's the din, by the way?
When does he add them?
No, in his mind, he adds them. In his mind, he decides he's going to shecht it. No, we said it's our Mishnah. It's kosher. Our Mishnah said that even though you're right by other things, but by these kinds of thoughts, as long as some are kosher, it's okay. Again, you've got a group of people which are fine, nothing wrong with them. and you've got a couple of people which are no good. Either what's no good about them are Avelim, that's the truth, the brothers died Chashov for Bismillah, whatever it may be, or the Tmein, whatever it may be. So you might have thought that because these people add to the group, therefore the whole group now should be no good. You might have thought such a thing, which we know is not true. How do we know it's not true? Because our Mishnah says so. So this is Yochid if Sabnei Chapo Aboin Imoy, but they know. Says the Beis, I'll work it out. The Beis is only asking. The Beis is only asking regarding Avelim. Regarding Timeim, the Beis takes it on as obvious that it shouldn't be a problem. And later the Gemara will ask, why did the Beis do that? Again, there are two kinds of problems. Either an oral joined into the group or a tummy joined into the group. The Beis says that regarding a tummy, I know it's not a problem. Regarding an oral, I'm not sure. So the Beis says like this. I can work it out. Just like by tummy. That means if one person's tummy is added to the group, what's the din? It's kosher. That means again, let's go very slowly. The Beis took it on. The Gemara is going to ask later how the Beis knew that Tmeim is not a problem. If you've got, let's imagine, 10 kosher people, Torah and everything else. One tummy says, let me join. The Beis knows that doesn't matter, it doesn't pass the code. The Beis is only asking by oral. Says the Beis, just like by tummy, if you do it exclusively for Tmeim, what would it be? Possible, very good. But if I just add the tummy, it's okay. So too by oral, if I do exclusively for Avelim, it's no good. But if I add the oral, it's okay. That's what the Beis says. And therefore, what? It makes no difference. And therefore, the Beis so far says that the halacha of our Mishnah, what was the halacha of our Mishnah? That if you have the part is okay, makes a lot of sense because we learn our Avelim from Tmeim. Says the Beis, maybe not. Oi, let's work out a different way of logic. If you designate it only for Avelim, what's the din? It's possible. There's man poisel. What's man poisel? This is the famous halacha of pigul. This is the case of pigul. Pigul is a case where you shech a korban with intention to either eat it or sacrifice it at the wrong time. Even if you eat it at the right time, and even if you sacrifice it at the right time, and you burn it at the right time, the korban is pigul. And not only is it pigul, if you eat it, one is chayav kost. It's the worst of all machshavos. If, for example, you think I'll eat it outside Yerushalayim, what's the din? It's possible. You do not have kost. But if you think I'm going to eat it at the wrong day, that means, let's say it's a common shlomim. What's the wrong day? In 3 days' time. If it's a common Torah, in 2 days' time. Because shlomim not eat for 2 days, Torah not eat for 1 day. Then what happens is, by pigul, even if it's just part, and even if you only do a part, for example, let's say you decide that when you're shechting the korban, you say, I'll eat 99% of it today. But the 1% in 2 days' time, the entire korban is pigul, and the entire korban is kos if you eat it. Says the Beis, let us compare Avelim to pigul. And if we compare Avelim to pigul, what would the din be if one oral decides to join in the korban? Then the whole korban is possible. Is that true? Okay, we've got a case. We know if one tummy adds himself to the korban, everybody agrees it's fine. Because as long as you don't designate it only for Tmeim, it's fine. By pigul, we know that even one minute amount passes. The question is, which one should we compare Ola to? Should we compare it to somebody who designates it for Tmeim, or should we compare it to pigul? Let's see the Beis again. It's too late. Yeah, we talk about shashchita. Okay. No, I don't. Wait a second. No, you can't add. You can't really add. Nobody can add themselves to the group, but you can have machshava incorrectly to do the zrika, for example, the Kabbalah Saddam, right, with intention that people who are not to be properly registered. You're right. To be registered for korban, yes, but the kohen thinks that someone else. That's right. Then he's adding for something that's not registered. All apostles. So the Beis now is confused. What should the din be by Ola? Should we compare it to Tmeim or should we compare it to pigul? And the question is, if you add one oral to 10 people who are not Avelim, will the common be possible?
Shouldn't it
Says,
be more like
oh,
Tomei, because
nearly midoma. The Beis says,
From the person.
nearly midoma. What's it more comparable? Tuma does not apply to all zvachim. Why? Tuma only applies, Tuma and oral are unique to Korban Pesach. And here we have a problem, because a Tomei person is not allowed to eat any Korban. So in what way is Tuma and oral unique to Korban Pesach? The answer is, a Tomei person can say, let's say I'm Tomei, I am Tomei. And I say to you, will you take a Korban for me to Beis Hamikdash and bring us it as a Korban? It's fine for me on my behalf. I can sit at home and I'll be Mekayim my mitzvah. Because at the end of the day, I've done my mitzvah. But if I'm Tomei and I ask you to bring the Korban Pesach for me, it's no good. And that goes back a little bit to what we said earlier, that Korban Pesach, they should be able to eat it. And since I can't eat it, it's no good. This halacha that you can't send a korban when you're Tomei or Ovad is unique to Korban Pesach. So now we have a question like this: what is more comparable? Like Tali wanted already argue. We've got two spectrums. We've got Tomei on one side and Pigul on the other. We've got Ola in the middle. Says the Gemara, Ola is more comparable to Tumah. Let's see why. Ola and Tumah doesn't apply to all korbanos. Pigul applies to every single korban, so we see it's not the same, it's a different kind of category. Says the Beis, I could argue the other way around. That is, we have a famous halacha that Korban Pesach can be bought if the whole of Klal Yisrael of Tomei, you can bring Korban Pesach in if you're Tomei. Let's say most of Klal Yisrael are Avelim, or most of Klal Yisrael do Pigul, what would it then be? Possible. So what's more comparable? So we're trying to work out Avelim, if it's more comparable to Pigul or to Thomas. First, it's more comparable to Tumah because it's unique by Pesach, that they're the only ones, and Tumah, that can't see the Korban Pesach. Now I say it's not true. Avelim and Pigul are more similar because Tumah hutur b'tzibur, and Avelim and Pigul lo hutur b'tzibur. So Avelim is more comparable to Pigul. Don't bring a proof from Tumah Shota Michlalo. Tamud Lema Zois. Says the Pasuk Zois. Since the Torah says Zois Chukas HaPesach, that tells us that what? That if you have a couple of Avelim joining into your korban, it is okay. Very briefly, let's go through the Beis very briefly. The Beis is asking a shaila. What's the shaila of the Beis? If a person has a group of people who are not Avelim, the mulin, they're done bismillah, and the kohen shechts it for them plus an oil, kosher or possible. And the Beis said you can compare it to Tomei, kosher, compare it to Pigul, possible. So then the Gemara Beis says, well, let's compare it more likely to Tomei, because Tomei and oil is yuchad to Korban Pesach, especially unique to Korban Pesach. No, let's compare it to Tumah and Pigul, because it's ola to Pigul, because it's lo tamechlol. Says the Torah Zois. Now, my Zois. How exactly does the word Zois teach us any of this? Elaim, they say this. The kula ola poslo, that we're going to learn from this word Zois, that if you designate the whole korban for Avelim as possible, mixed possible, but if you only designate part of it for Avelim, it's not possible. Hi, mi b'chol oil nafka. You don't need the word Zois. We've got much better drasha. It says v'chol oil ul Avelim, and from there we learn what we learn.
If you got some okay and some not.
Very good. Oh, v'chol oil teaches us only if it's all Avelim. V'chol oil ul Avelim. But if you've got half and half, then it's okay. So you don't need the word Zois. Elalav hachikton. This is what the Beis is teaching us. Tamud lema v'chol oil kul oil posla mixaslei posla. The Beis means like this. All Avelim is possible, but half and half is okay. V'chitim u'adin zvika. And if you'll say the same halacha by zvika, the kul oil mi'aposla, you're going to dash that just like we learned that if you designate it for Avelim, it's no good. Also, if you do zvika for Avelim, it's no good. Tamud lema zois. The word Zois limits this. V'shchita the kul olam mi'aposla, aber zvika afilu kul olam namilei posla. That by olo, by zvika, it even if you designate it for all Avelim, it's not possible. V'chiteva my kula de zvika. Why in the world should there be such a kula? Why should it be that if you designate the zvika, all of them should be okay? The answer is because if you think only by zvika, even you of Chista agree that it doesn't work. It's only when you shecht with intention to zvika that you argue with me. So you agree with me that zvika is more lenient. Since you agree with me that zvika is more lenient, agree with me that when you shecht for the sake of zvika, that it's also more lenient. I'll try to explain again. It is complicated. A couple of people told me, 2 different people told me today that this sugya from Salach Samach Gimel is the hardest throughout what we've had since the beginning. 2 different, and it is hard. But mainly say this will get through. And if you think about it, get it clear, there's a certain pleasure in happiness. The Beis started off with a very basic question about somebody who does half and half kosher possible. The Beis tried to compare it to Tomei, tried to compare it to Pigel, wasn't sure which one to compare it to, says Zois. Now, Rabbi says that the word Zois has no meaning and no bearing on this question, because the word Zois doesn't discuss this question and has nothing to do with this question. What Rabbi does is he adds an entire new question into the Brisa, and he says that when the Brisa says the word Zois, the Brisa was coming to answer this particular question. Now, what was the question the Brisa was trying to answer? The very question that Rabbi and Chista argued. The way Rabbi explains it is like this. The Torah says, V'chol olam. V'chol olam teaches you that only if it's designated only for Avedim it's possible. But that half and half is kosher. But then you can be Medayak, but that all is no good. So you might have thought all no good. The same halacha would be by Zvika, meaning when you shecht it for the right reason, but with intention at the same time that the Zvika should be for the wrong reason, that it should work. That's not that it should not work, because you should have thought, just like by Kol Avedim, it doesn't work. Also by Zvika, Kamash on Zois is a miot not. And if you'd ask me, but why should that be? Where's the justice? Why is it that by Shechita, if it's for Kol Avedim, it's no good, but by Zvika it's not? Because if you don't have a reason, then the word Zois will not be mamayited, because why should we mamayit something which got no difference? The answer is that if you were to do it only b'shar Zvika, even you of Chista would agree that it's not possible. You only argue when you do b'shar Shechita for Shar Zvika. So therefore, that's what the Beis is teaching. Okay. Rav Chista said, I'll tell you a different shot in the Beis. I'll tell you what the Beis really meant. Like you, Rabbi, V'chol Orel teaches me that what? What's V'chol Orel teach me according to Rav Chista? Now what? What does it teach me V'chol Orel according to Rav Chista? What's the term that says V'chol Orel?
All already knows possible.
Very good. And that if you designate it for? Very good. Oh, exactly. But you can then comment to it. By Zvika, even a part is possible. You might have thought, no, that by Zvika, you need all of them, and he's being more machmir. And he's saying that by Ola, even by Zvika, even if you do half and half, it's possible. The word Zois means this only. This color, the half and half is so good, but is good by Avelim, is only by the Shechita. But if you do it by the Zvika, it's no good. Because Pigol only becomes by Zvika. Now, this is a complicated thing. I'll come to it in a minute, what the chum of Zvika is. But let's just explain how Chista understands it. He reads it like this. He starts off like Rabbi. V'chol Ovel teaches you only if all are aveilim. And if you do Shechita for half and half, what's the din? Kosher. But with Zvika, which is more chomo, even half aveilim is no good. Oh, you'll say to me, no, that this din that it's possible is only by Shechita, not by Zvika. Kamash Valon Zois, that only by Shechita you have this kula, not by Zvika. And why will you be so machmir by Zvika? Because Pigul is established by Zvika. I want to explain very briefly what it is. And this is very important. It doesn't come up so much over here. It comes up a very, 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 very lot in Shas. It's a very good knowledge to have. I once read times, I didn't know this. It's a shame not to know this. The halacha is that if you get a korban wrong, for example, how can you get a korban wrong? Let's say you shecht it with intention to eat it outside Yerushalayim. What's the din of the korban? Possible. If you eat it, what happens? No, you get malchus, no costs. Right? Malchus, no costs. If you intend to eat it on the wrong day, the wrong day, then it becomes pigul. That is a very, very long sugya in Zvachim, over 20 daf, about one question. One question, can you imagine? If a person shechts with pigul intentions, what has he done to his korban? With the wrong intentions, the wrong date. He's made a pigul. And if you eat it, of course. But then after the shechita, he does something even worse. By the Kabbalah, let's say, he says, I'm going to now catch the blood or walk with the blood with intention to eat it outside Yerushalayim.
Not worse. In other words.
So now if he eats the korban, I want to ask you a shayla. If he eats the korban now, would you give him koros or not?
Yeah, it's done for it. Can't change it. It's on the first thing.
Would he get koros or
First thing
not?
he did was for.
No, it's not nitfas loshen v'shadachar, because of here it's two separate avodas. When he shechted it, he had intention to eat it the wrong day. But when he caught the blood, the wrong place.
Right.
Would you give him koros for eating this korban?
If he does it eat 3 days later.
Yeah, no. Makes it like figure makes a difference when you eat it. Like figure if you eat it. When he shechted it, he had intention to eat it the wrong day.
Did he do that?
It makes no difference when you actually eat it. Pigul makes no difference what you actually do. It's actually what you thought about. The halacha is he gets no koros. That means no koros. And this thing goes on and on. Again, let's get it very clear. If he did either of the four avodas, what are the four avodas? Shechita, catching the blood, walking with the blood, or zika of the blood. With the intention of pigul, that means eating it the wrong day, it becomes pigul. Only if everything else was done right. If anything else was done wrong, then what happens is we say to ourselves, this is not pigul. This is a problematic korban anyway. If it's a problematic korban, how can you give him cause? He's not eating pigul. Do you follow?
So we're letting him out of it.
That's right. And not just if he does it for the wrong place of Yerushalayim. Let's say he makes it tomei. Let's say he leaves it off the korban on his back. Anything he does wrong, it will not be pigul.
Another three are right.
The only way to get pigul, that means, are you listening? The only way to get pigul is to do it right and only get it a bit wrong. If you get it very wrong, there's no pigul. So Rashi goes through this whole cheshbon, the chite ma'achumah desvika. It tells us all of it. Comes out like this. Mamish, you've just done be'emes 20 daf. They should know it's a fighting thing. How much the Gemara goes into it, on and on and on.
Is it shechita or what are the three? Is it shechita which is wrong?
It makes no difference. Let's say if he did the shechita with all the right intentions, and then he caught the blood with. No. Kabbalah, let's say he did with the wrong date, and then halacha with the wrong place, he will not be chayav koros.
No, what I mean is, the pigul you found, can it be on any of the,
Yes.
the other three, right?
Yes.
Or just on the shechita?
No, any of the four.
Any of the other three, right?
That's right. So let's say he shechted it for the wrong day.
Yeah.
No. Let's say he shechted it for the wrong place,
No,
and then he did Kabbalah for the wrong day. Will he get pigul?
No, what I mean is, if you do shechita, kabbalah, and halacha for the right reason, and then the zrika messed it up, it's pigul still. It doesn't have to be the shechita with the.
That's right. Yes, but as long as he messes it up only with the wrong day. If you mess, that's right. If you mess it up, and then right, says the Gemara that zrika, when it's done correctly, is the final nail in the coffin to make pigul. If you do not do the zrika correct, let's say he didn't do zrika. Let's say he didn't bother doing zrika. He shechted it for the wrong day, and then he spilled the blood. Will you give him cause for eating the korban? No, very good. You will not, because he never did zvika correctly. So we see that zvika is the most chamor. Therefore, since we see zvika is the most chamor, says Rav Chisda, it's illogical to say that if you do shechita for the wrong with intention that half and half of the zvika fa'avedim, the whole thing's possible. Let's see just the words inside. Umay chumah de zvika, de mikba pigul. Pigul is not established. Elo bezvika, only with the zvika which was done. Maskiv lo Rashi. We might have v'chol oil kula mashma. How do you know, like both Rabbi and Chisda both said, that v'chol oil means? What does v'chol oil mean? Everybody has been oil. If I do half and half, it's okay. V'chol oil mashma, kol do oil. Maybe v'chol oil means any v'chol oil. When I say all, you can mean if all of them are avelim, or if any one of them is avelim. So how do they v'chol oil? And if any of them in all of these circumstances there's an oil, it's no good. Ba'ashba kol du oil, ba'edim ba'avchol ba'ashba kol du oil, kos v'achvod zois. And if the Torah had to say the word Zois, the Adika Kolola, the Apostle, Ishlam B'Shchita, Ishlam B'Zrika. Says of Rashi, I've got a different Malach in the Gemara. We've got actually 3 Malachim now, how to dash and Kolola and Zois. Rabbi dash and Kolola, Rabbi B'Chista both dash and Kolola, you have to have only Avelim. If it's half and half, it's okay. Rabbi the dash the word Zois to tell you about that Zrika, we don't care, even if it's Kol Avelim, it's okay. Rabbi B'Chista dash another Ram to tell you that by Zrika, even half and half is no good. Rashi says, by both of you are wrong. Kolola would tell you any of Zois needs to tell you all Avelim, and there would be the same halacha by Shchita and by Zrika. They have to have all Avelim. Elomar Rashi, Chista v'Rabba b'Hai Kol K'Bifliki. They argue about a different pasuk. The pasuk says v'Nid Saloi lechape Olof, that you should do the korban to the top of Samach Beis of the Aleph to mechape on him Olov v'Lo al Chavim. That when the Torah says mechape on him, not on your friend. And from here we learn that Shinui Ba'alim is no good. So therefore, if I, for example, bring a korban when I'm intending for A and I do it for B, says the Torah, Olov for him and not for somebody else. So if I do it for the wrong person, I've ruined it. Says the Gemara, but let's just go, I say it's a bit outside. Whenever we say to exclude, we always exclude something similar. Just like I had the potential to have the korban, if you had the potential to have the korban, and the Kohen Gadol does it for somebody else, that's no good. But if he never even had the potential to have the korban, so then the Torah doesn't dash in that. We said that before by the Chinese, Lamashal. If the korban Thomas is bought for the Chinese, it's not a problem of the wrong owners. Why is it not the problem of the wrong owners? Because they're not even in the concept. They're not even in the concept. They're not connected. The Torah says, do it for A, not for B. If B couldn't possibly do it, then we don't care. Don't say, don't do it for A, do it for B, because B is not even in the parasha. It says, Rabbi Sava Chaver do today. Now the Bakapo, Chaver the Bakapo, la Fukayod, la Bakapo. Rabbi Chista Sava Hayo Nami Kivu the Bachiyuvu. Since he is chayav, even an oval, there's a difference between a goy and an oval. An oval, it is true coming a Korban Pesach, but theoretically he could. What could he do? Since he could fix himself to Bris Milah, and we should him say, "Oh, he can't do Bris Milah. Why can't he do Bris Milah? His brothers died." And they all say, but he still could do Bris Milah. He physically can. So therefore, so the Gemara is like this. The Machlokas Rabban of Chista is a different Machlokas. It's like this. When you do Shechita, and you do with intention for the Zrika to be half and half, it's no good. Wait a second. If you do the Zrika for the wrong people, it should be no good. Why not? Because in the end of the day, it is the wrong people, right? Comes along the Gemara and says, no. Rabbi says, it's only a problem if you do Shechita with intention to do Zrika for people that in theory could be Yotza. But who are you doing the Zrika for over here? People who are Avelim, and they couldn't possibly do it anyway. So therefore, the fact that they're so out of their box makes us better. And therefore, that's why, go back to the topic of Samachal Days, if you've got a second to look at it. Again, let's go back to that original Machlekas, because we're going to stop now a little bit. We're going to stop today anyway, and tomorrow we're going to carry on. I just want to point out one thing. If Chista works over here with the concept of Hoyel, what's the Hoyel? Because even somebody who's got an Orlo has the possibility of doing Bris Milah and putting himself into the concept. So now the Gemara goes off on a tangent back to the topic of Hoyel, which is a bit easier. If you remember, we had a Hoyel about cooking on Yom Tov. But now let's go back to the original sugya, so Machalefot based top line. Shochter the Mulan Mishkapel Ba'avein in Misvika. Achis says it's possible. Why? Because it says to him, not to the wrong person. Rabbi says it's kosher. Why is it kosher? Because Rabbi says, who are you doing it for? You're doing it for an oral. But the oral is not somebody that could possibly even have a Korban Pesach. So it's like the Chinese. And therefore, it's no problem of, we're going to get millions of hits from the Chinese, and they might get upset to say, why are we not in the country? We're up to over here.
Just ban you from coming in the country.
Second. We're up to 7 lines from the top. Tomorrow, I'd like to do, we'll see how far I get. I can't promise. It's Friday.
We're not doing some Agadata tomorrow.
There's no Agadata.
We'll come back to this. Once the Shabbos.
Change the order around.
Yeah, just do an Agadata daf tomorrow.
I did went much better than I expected.
I think yesterday was the foundation.
I'm just trying to see when it gets. Yeah, it gets much easier once you get to Monday.
Right,
Monday.
it's not a but it's easy.
No, I like it all. Anyway.